Hello, all footy fans. Welcome to episode 4 of the Wild Doggies Fan podcast. If you're new here, please like the video, comment and subscribe, and stay tuned for all future videos. Okay guys, this is going to be a great episode today. Obviously, Bulldogs are coming off a great win at a sold-out Belmore Sports Ground. I'm in a great mood. I'm looking forward to talking about everything in this episode. There's a lot to cover, so let's just get straight into it. Hopefully this video should come out around Wednesday, because that is the time of recording. However, I think the softwares probably will have some issues, and I'm hoping to get it out by maybe Friday if it really gets difficult. But regardless, we're going to dive just straight into this episode. First, we're going to do a round 22 review of just all the games, and then we'll move on. We'll do how I normally do things on this podcast now. Okay, so the first game was on the Thursday night. Tigers and Cowboys at Leichhardt Oval. Cowboys beat the Tigers 48-30. Okay, so with this game, Cowboys should not have conceded 30 points to the Tigers, who, from about the 50th minute onwards, were only playing with 12 men on the field. So, I kind of expected Cowboys to put a big score, like 48 points, but I thought there's no way Tigers would put 30 points on the Cowboys as well. So, it's a bit concerning for the Cowboys' defense, and it makes you really wonder, how far into the final series will the Cowboys actually get if they play like they did on Thursday and they just clock off? Because it just seemed like they were up by 20 points, I believe, and then they just they clocked off, and Tigers were three tries with 12 men on the field. So that was really, really odd, but I expect the Cowboys to, play well. They still play pretty well. Taulagi got a hat trick. Val Holmes had a field day. Drinkwater, man, he had a great performance as well. I'm fuming about Val Holmes getting 136 Supercoach points. I'm telling you, I was walking back to my car from uni. I was going to make the trade from Ito to Val, and I thought, should I? He might not do well. Cowboys might get pumped like they did last time they versed at Leichhardt. So I didn't do it. He then goes on to score 136 points. Oh, I was fuming. But I brought him in. Well, might as well tell you now. I brought him in this week. So hopefully he scores well against, I believe, the Broncos. And for the Tigers, look, they've had just an absolute shocker this year. It's sad. It's disappointing. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the Tigers. So seeing them, they're just struggling. They're such a young, inexperienced team. They just lack discipline. Again, they're either getting sin bins, send-offs, reports, suspensions. They're always getting something, the Tigers, this year. And look, regarding Olam's send-off, I think that was soft. I think it should have been 10 in the bin. Look, I get it. It was forceful contact to the head. It's not on. But I think, considering the aftermath, I think 10 in the bin would have sufficed. I don't think send-off, but look, I'm not the one to make that call. It's clear what the refs had. That's their job to make that call, but I thought that was pretty soft. I feel like 10 in the bin would have sufficed. Anyway, that's pretty much all for that game. Moving on to the Friday game that I think probably would be one of the upsets of the round. Parramatta beating the Warriors in New Zealand 30 points to 20. Warriors, their season was on the line pretty much. If they win this game, they're re-sparking their chance to make the 8. And they dish out that performance. It's been the Warriors story all year. Look, I know that they've managed to sell out every single home game this season. That's the first time ever for any club. So, I commend them for that. But, man, it's been rough for the Warriors this year. They've had some shockers. And to lose to a Parramatta side with no Mitch Moses, they're playing in New Zealand. These guys are fighting with the Tigers for the wooden spoon. Surely Warriors would have put them away in this game. The scoreline should have been reversed. It shouldn't have been Parramatta win 30-20. It should have been Warriors. But props to Parramatta. They put up I believe, the way I see it, I think it's because with Jason Riles coming into the side as a coach next year, these Parramatta boys are playing to keep their spots. I don't think they've all been given the warning, hey, you keep screwing up, we're going to ship you off, or reserve grade, or something. So they put on a good performance. And look, I only caught bits of this game. I'll commend Parramatta though. They played a pretty good game, but I still can't see them go very far this year. You can kind of put a line through them. And the Warriors, disappointing. I thought Parramatta would not Parramatta. I would have thought the Warriors would have put like 40. Surely, like with the way their attacking flair is, and the way Parramatta have been very poor this year, you would have assumed Warriors, pump them. But rugby league is a funny sport. You can just sometimes you can just not predict how certain games are going to go. Okay, moving on to the late game on the Friday, Dolphins and Roosters up in Perth, HBF Park. Roosters beat Dolphins 40 points to 34. Mate, this was a high-scoring game. 74 points scored in 80 minutes. That's nearly a point a minute. And look, Dolphins have now lost 3 in a row. Is it concerning? Yes. But you got to also look at what the Dolphins have been through this year. They've had a shit ton of injuries. They've had a lot of the key signs that they made during the preseason. They haven't been injured or they haven't been performing up to standard. And sometimes Dolphins will be up by like a decent amount, and then they'll bottle. They'll like the Titans of last year. Where Titans would start really well, and then like second half they'd fade away. That's kind of been the Dolphins' MO this year. And look, I can't fully blame them. They're very like low on players at the moment. A lot of injuries. A lot of people aren't able to play, but still. And look, I never thought Dolphins were any chance at winning this game. So to put 34 points on the Roosters, I'll commend them for that. And now as for the Roosters, the way they started this game, they should not have conceded as many tries as they did. I honestly think Dolphins were probably the better side. Yes, Roosters won. But man, Dolphins, to fight back the way they did and make it 20-20 halftime, mate, the Dolphins, they're a team that just don't go away until like the back end of the game, then they kind of go away. But anyway, Sam Walker had a great performance for the Roosters. I believe scored like 109 or something Supercoach points. I sold him for Cleary, so I don't really remember. I don't really know. Satilius Tupanua got a try double towards the end, and that's a great thing to see, considering he's coming to the Dogs next year. So that always makes me. I've been watching him a lot more lately and seeing him score tries and stuff. That always that gives me a lot of promising hope for what he'll bring to the Dogs next year. Because at the moment, our issue is we need a bit of a bigger forward pack. But you know what? We're still the second best defensive side. Anyway, leave it to me. I'm talking about the Roosters, but I somehow link it back to the Bulldogs. Anyway, I'm glad for the Perth crowd. It was like, what? I'll check actually right now how many fans. Because it was like over 20,000 people rocked up to this game. We had 20,027 people rocked up to this game. So, you know what? Considering like they barely get any footy up in Perth, I think they should be the 18th team that they've been talking about all year should be a Perth team. That's just sorry about that, everyone. That's my opinion. I think the Perth team should be the 18th team. Now moving on to Super Saturday, 2 great games and 1 absolute stinker of a game. So the first game on the Saturday, the Titans and the Broncos. Titans win 46-18 up at Seabus. Man, this was such a good game. Honestly, I really liked this. Was a great game. Broncos started really well. Reece Walsh had some great individual tries. He was really like trying to put a great performance on, but Titans copped some sort of like spraying at halftime, and they came out flying. Like the Titans recently, ever since that big win over the Warriors, they've been one of the best teams to watch. And honestly, if they keep playing like this, I reckon they're a fair shot to try and make the 8. It's such a wild thing to say that the Titans, who started out this season 0-6, are a possibility to make the 8 over last year's grand finalists for Brisbane Broncos. Like, that's a wild thing that you can now say in 2024. That the Titans are more of a chance at the 8 than the Broncos are. Because the Broncos look absolutely hopeless. They're kind of remind me a bit of like last year's Bulldogs, where they lose, like they concede a couple tries, and all heads go down. they give up and they kind of just like let the Titans or they let the opposition team just keep scoring try after try after try. Like Keanu Kinney, man, he got sin binned, came back out and then scored a try double like almost immediately. Like, if you look at which fullback's been better this year, Keanu Kinney or Reece Walsh, Keanu Kinney's been an outstanding fullback. So much so that now people are wondering if AJ Brimson should be back at fullback or keep it as Keanu Kinney. Because that back line with him, Camperera, Sami, Kelly, Jojo Fafita, they're killing it. Jojo Fafita got a hat-trick. When was the last time you heard Jojo Fafita getting a hat-trick? Like, the Titans are a different breed this year. Like, it kind of makes you think, like, if they played like this all year, I reckon they would have been a top 8. They would have been in the 8. I genuinely think if they played like this all year, mate, top 8 would be theirs. But the thing is, Titans have had some really poor games. Like, they had that really bad game against Manly, like back in round 20. Then, obviously they've a couple of games they kind of either got robbed. Like, there have been a few games this year where the Titans actually got robbed of like 2 points. Like the Raiders game, the Melbourne game. So I genuinely think Titans could be in the top 8 if, certain things went their way. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. And look, Titans are a Gold Coast team, a Queensland team. I don't really care too much. But it's just, I like seeing underdogs like them get their chance. Titans never even played a grand final, let alone win a comp. So it'd be nice to see a different team, do well instead of, the standard. But regardless, Titans, they're doing well, man. Round of applause to that. And now for the Broncos. I'll just quickly talk about Broncos. Their downfall, out of all the teams that have fallen off, their downfall needs to be studied. Like, how do you go from being a grand finalist and you were 16 minutes away from winning the premiership? It would be the first time since 2006 the Broncos win a comp. You're like 18 to 16 minutes away from winning it. You bottle it. You collapse under the pressure, and then you go on this year to like not even make top 12, let alone top 8. And look, they've had a whole bunch of injuries. I know recently, I think Payne Haas got a Liz Frank injury, and Mam had an injury. Wishing them both obviously have a speedy recovery. Never like to see players get injured. But like, I know Adam Reynolds had his bicep pretty much torn, and he couldn't play for pretty much 17 weeks or something. A bit less than that, but he couldn't play for a long time. Is what I'm trying to say. So I get it, but still, with the roster they have, a halfback shouldn't be that crucial. Like, I get it, halfbacks are crucial, but man, Broncos, and you know what? It's not even that. Like against the Bulldogs, I know I shouldn't make this all just about the Bulldogs, but last week they had a full strength squad. They had pretty much everyone on paper to play, and they got crushed. They got absolutely pumped. So you can't even blame that. It's hard to pinpoint what's actually gone wrong with the Broncos this year. If it's like grand final hangover, did they have like a lack of a preseason because they were partying from the grand final? Did Vegas have a role in this? Has there been some like off-field controversy with the players? Who knows? All I'm saying is the Broncos are struggling, so it's not a great sight. Now moving on to what was an absolutely brilliant game. The Melbourne Storm and St. George Illawarra Dragons, for the first time in 25 years. 25 years? No, I think so. Like the first time in this century, the Dragons beat the Melbourne Storm in Melbourne. Like, that is huge. Yeah, they won 18 to 16. That obviously isn't a big score, but man, considering that last week Dragons got destroyed by Panthers, I thought Melbourne were going to put like 40 on these guys. I'm going to be honest. So for the Dragons to like fight back and like break a record like that, round of applause to them. Them and the Dogs have both been a great turnaround this year. I don't want to talk too much about that because I want to cover that a bit later on in the podcast. But round of applause, Dragons, man. You proved everyone wrong. You beat Melbourne in Melbourne. That's huge, especially because you guys haven't done it in 25 years. So, round of applause to you guys. Now for Melbourne. Man, they really could have put this game away. There were so many crucial moments where they just got the right pass, the right kick. But I don't know. Is it because they were winning so much that they come into this game overconfident? I don't know. All I'm saying is Bellamy was fuming. You could just see every time they cut to him, he's yelling, he's screaming. I don't blame him. If my team is coming first, we're winning 6 on the trot, and we're about to go up against, or like 7 on the trot, however long. We're about to go up against a team that just got destroyed by the team coming in second, and we dish up that performance. Oh, I'd be losing my shit too. I don't blame him. So I'm expecting Melbourne to be a dominant team, come next Thursday against poor South Sydney. And speaking of South Sydney, they're the next team to cover on Saturday, 7:35. The Sharks and the Rabbitohs at PointsBet Stadium. Sharks win 20 points to 16. And what was probably the most boring game of this round? I know it sounds like I'm just hating on Souths, but my God, the last couple of weeks, their games have been boring. Like it's so tedious watching them play. They look flat, no attacking flair. They don't never look like they're posing a threat to the opposition team. And you pair that with the Sharks, who they themselves haven't been that good lately. Like ever since Magic Round, I don't know what happens at Magic Round, but whenever a team goes flying at the first couple of games, they go to Magic Round, they win. And after that, they fall off. They stop playing well. They start playing like shit. Sharks should have been like well into the top. Yes, they're still top 4, but that's because they started the season like 1 from 9. Well, no, not 1 from 9. Like 1 loss out of like 9 games or something along those lines. Like Sharks were doing so well. For them to now potentially lose their top 4 spot, which I'm hoping they will, because they're the team that's in the way of the Dogs making top 4. Again, I'm just gonna keep connecting it back to the Dogs because, my team, and I am the Wild Doggies fan, so I'm always going to try and talk about my Doggies, but I'll be talking about them soon. So look, bit of a boring game. I saw Sharks win this, but they didn't win convincingly. They had a couple of tries disallowed. There's not much else I can really say about this game. Both teams were pretty poor. But yeah, there wasn't much excitement or anything interesting about this game. The only thing interesting was that it's revealed Casey Badger, who was the bunker ref, she's I think married or dating someone on the South's coaching staff. So now she's been banned from every single Souths game. Can Jared Sutton go marry someone from Souths? Actually, no. Can Jared Sutton go marry someone from the Bulldogs so he never has to come near the Bulldogs games ever again? That would be really appreciated. Alright, the next game, Sunday 2 o'clock, Panthers and Newcastle. Panthers beat Newcastle 22-14 up in Penrith. Now look, I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch this game. I was at Belmore at the time. I was watching New South Wales Cup. I was enjoying the game day experience, which I am going to talk about very, very soon. So I'll keep this brief and I'll keep this quick because I caught I watched the extended highlights on this game. Panthers should have really won this game a lot more than by 8 points. But kind of the story of this round, a lot of these bottom 8 teams are putting up a fight against the top 8 teams, and you want to see that. You don't want to see everywhere just the same teams putting on 30, 40 points. No, you want to see the other teams have a fight back, maybe have an upset, have a big win. You want to see that. It makes the sport more interesting. How boring would it be if Panthers, Roosters, Melbourne, Broncos, Eels, Dogs, list a couple of teams, they just win every week, and then Tigers, Dragons, Cowboys, I don't know, the bottom 8 teams lose and top 8 teams win, and it's just constantly. It's not interesting, and that's been the big story of this year. That the top 8 race is actually probably the most intense it's been in a long time. Genuinely, I think every team from first through to I don't know, 13th, 14th maybe, are all racing for top 8. Yeah, teams like Panthers, Roosters, Melbourne, those 3 teams have 100% locked themselves in for top 8. I can't see any of those 3 dropping out. But pretty much any team from Sharks downwards, mate, they're a chance to fall out of the 8 or go up in the 8. You just don't know. So credit to Newcastle for putting up a fight there. We like to see those kind of teams put up a fight. Panthers, Nathan Cleary does what he normally does, scoring game-winning tries lately. He's in a try-scoring form. It's great to see from halfbacks. So there's not much else really to cover about that game. Great performance by Penrith. But that's not really the game I want to talk about as much, because I really didn't watch much. Now, the last game of the round, Sunday, 4:05 at Belmore Sports Ground. Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs versus the Raiders. Dogs win 22-18. Okay. How far are we into this episode? 20 minutes? Alright, guys. If you don't want to listen to me talk about the Bulldogs, tune out for the next 20 minutes. Because I'm about to start spinning some yarns. Because, my gosh, I love going to Belmore. We only get to go twice a year. I love it. I love going there. I got there really early because I had a feeling it was going to be a pain in the ass to get a spot on the hill. Because that's where I was. I went to go sit on the hill. Also, I forgot to mention, I just realized. Also, if you do want to see all my my content, non-podcast related content, check out my Instagram at the Wild Doggies Fans, because I was pretty much constantly posting photos and videos and everything of the game day experience at Belmore and the results and all that usual stuff. The Instagram's been going off lately, which has been really good to see. I'm glad to see the Instagram gaining some traction. It's always great to see. I got to meet so many other content creators. I got to meet the likes of, Winston Neville, Touchline Podcast, Amelia the Savage. I got to meet all the Hectic Fred. I got to meet so many great people while I was there at Belmore. And that's the beauty of Belmore games. You're so close to the whole community of Belmore. Now, no, I'm just talking about Belmore for now. I'll cover the game in a bit, but I just first want to talk about what the atmosphere of what it's like at Belmore. This was a sold-out Belmore crowd, and it was the most packed it's been in the better part of 8 to 10 years, I'd say. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but and with this kind of winning culture, it's finally back at Belmore, and it was made so clearly evident through the fans. Every time anything happened Bulls related, people were up yelling or clapping or cheering. And the fact that I think the New South Wales Cup team had probably one of the biggest turnouts, because so many people were there early just to get good spots for the main game. But we caught the New South Wales Cup, and they put a great game as well. They won 22-12 against the New South Wales Cup Raiders, who are coming second. And I got to meet Max King. I saw him where I was out walking around. I just saw Max King. That was, he's a great player. He's such a good bloke as well. I can't wait to see him back in action. Hopefully around 26. Right in time for when we versus Manly at the core. Also, how about the fact that we haven't lost a single home game yet this year? I think we have 3 home games left. 2 at a core, and technically we have the one up at Bundaberg in Queensland against the Dolphins. But I don't really. Technically, yes, on paper, it's a home game, so we still have to win it to keep a home game record. But still, the fact that we haven't lost at home yet this year, and pretty much all of our wins, except for the Knights and Broncos game, were all home games, that's absolutely astounding. And it just shows you that once you start winning, people will start turning up. And the crowds will start cheering. I think back to last year when Newcastle pumped us 66-0. I sat through that full 80 minutes. I have this weird thing where no matter what the score is, no matter what happens, I want to sit through a game from the first minute through to the 80th minute. It could be a team could be up by 10 and they're going to take the 2 and there's a minute and a half to go. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to watch it because, I used to not really go to games much. So whenever I do get a chance to go, I want to enjoy it. I want to savor every last possible minute. So when I was there last year, I watched Newcastle put 66 points on us. I was devastated. I was so gutted. We were 15th, they were 14th. It should have been a tight game, a good game of footy, not an absolute just evisceration. That was truly one of our darkest days. And then 12 months later, we're racing for a top 4 spot where the fans are cheering. When you hear the fans talk about the Bulldogs, it's all positivity. It's not, we're pretty shit. No, it's, we're a good team. We have the second best defense in the entire comp. We haven't conceded 30 points yet in a singular game. That hasn't been done since the Melbourne Storm in 2021. And that was when they went on that absolute run and they came first. Yeah, they didn't win the comp, but man, Melbourne in 2021 were a lethal team. So to see the Bulldogs playing like they are, it just makes me so happy. It's so great to see the turnaround. And there's so many people I could like link to that success, but it's really every player. But again, I want to cover more that bit later. I want to talk about, now I think I've talked about the game day experience. I've talked about how great it was being with all the fans, meeting all the people, you know. Now I'll talk about the actual game. And I know in my last episode I said Dogs should win this game by like 13 plus. And look, technically, we could have. We really should have. We bombed a couple of tries. You know, if Jerry passed that ball to Tracy, I reckon he would have scored. Kiko had that ball stripped. I'm sorry, but Kiko had that ball stripped from him. That was a clear strip. Like, that should not have been play on. It should have been our ball. But whatever. Ashley Klein was on something on Sunday. I'm sorry. I know we shouldn't bag on the refs, but my gosh, his performance on Sunday was abysmal. The amount of shit calls he gave us, it was a joke. Every 5 seconds we even breathed near the Raiders. Penalty. Like, that was so frustrating and annoying. Regardless, look, Bulldogs had a great game. As usual, our defense was astounding. We let a very soft try at the very end of the game. And look, I'll quickly talk about the Raiders. They're playing alright. Again, there's a reason why they're outside the 8. They're like 10th. They managed to, like, their thing is they'll just win the games or they'll get absolutely destroyed. Or on a rare occasion, like this one, they lost by only a little bit. It was a close, good contest. There's not really else much about the Raiders. You know, they're very good at their offloads. They play a very gritty style of footy where they get into an arm wrestle. It's whoever gets fatigued first. And that was the difference. Who was going to get fatigued first? And that's all pretty much what I say about the Raiders. Now the Bulldogs. They had a great performance. You know, I think the two key standout players were the two returning players from injury. The first one I'll talk about is Josh Adokar, the Fox. Now, I love the Fox. A lot of people have been saying, oh, he's washed, he's this, he's that, oh, he's not that good, we should move him on to next year or whenever his contract's up. No, you gotta look at the way he brings a certain energy and vibe to the culture and the club. Like, his energy is just, his positivity is so infectious with this team. He's always laughing. He's always there trying to hype them up. He's always there in support. He's and I think one of his biggest issues was he used to like be really bad trying to get us out of our own 20 because he was so light that if he got tackled, they'd push him back like 20 meters, 20, 15 meters. And now this year, he's actually now moving forward instead of being pushed backwards, which I've been noticing because I've always been watching that habit of his. And look, he scored 2 great tries. You know, he had that first one off the scrum. Jerry did most of the work for that one, but man, Adokar blitzed the Raiders players and scored that try. The crowd went nuts. And then that second one off of, I think it was either a Sexton or a Burden kick. You know, Crichton runs up, catches the ball off the kick, flicks it to Adokar, and then he puts the ball down and scores. You know, he was great. But the real standout in this game, truly the man of the match of this game, and I'll say it from now, my player of the round, Stephen Crichton. Now look, I've said it on my Instagram, I've said it on here before, I am like the number one Crichton fan. I think he's a brilliant, brilliant player. For someone who's 23, he plays like a veteran, like a true veteran. You know, every year he's played, he's always made a grand final, I think, or roughly. Except for like 2019, but he played like one game, I think. But 2020 to 2023, he's always played in a grand final. He always scores a try in the grand final. He's had so much experience with someone at 23. Now he's coming to this Bulldog side. Now he's the captain. And the way he's changed the mentality of this team is insane. Like, look at the effort he put on Sunday. You know, that first try. He gets the ball. Not much has been happening in this set. He gets the ball. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to barge through everyone. Does a nasty fend on, I think it was Timoko or Rapana, and just pushes through like 3-4 defenders and just puts the ball down. That was great. And his second try was the much better try, in my opinion. It's like fifth tackle. He's out on the far end of the field. They give him the ball. He does this perfectly weighted kick. He dinks it. It goes right through the two Raiders players, right through their shoulders. He runs around them and he chases the ball. He manages to get the ball and put the ball down right before it goes over the line. Like, what? As a center, that is brilliant stuff. It's such inspirational, motivational type shit. It's so good to watch. I was going to talk about it later, about how much of an impact Ryan's been on this team as captain. But do I really need to say much? Like, just have a look at the way he's changed this side. Okay, I'm going to take a step back, refrain myself, because I feel like if I keep going, I'm not going to stop. But yeah, Bulldogs had a great match, great game. Atmosphere was great. After the game, I might as well talk about it from now, before I cover round 23 stuff. After the game, my friends and I, we walked on the field, then we left. We partied with everybody else in the streets of Belmore. And look, I get it. Some people will complain like, oh, it's only round 22. What are you guys doing? Stop partying like that. We didn't win the grand final. But you got to remember, a lot of the people out there partying were like young fans, like in their teens, like early 20s maybe. Or maybe a bit older. But the fact is, some of these guys were around when Dogs were winning all the time. It was just normal for Dogs to win. And then you got the fans like me, who I'll say it from now. I'll let you guys do the math. Bulldogs haven't won a premiership in my lifetime. Before I was even born, was the last time the Dogs won the comp. So, when I was growing up, I was around that great era of like Ben Barber, that has his coaching side, where we were playing good footy, but we just weren't winning the comps. And then, obviously, in my later teens, I've been seeing, all these, us getting the spoon, bottom three constantly, shit defense, no one wants to play for the club, we're the easy team. So when we finally start winning, and we start getting that winning culture back, it's all those years of build-up of just frustration and losing and losing and losing. We want to express it. We want to express that we're winning. We're hostile about it because we barely get it. It took us having to lose pretty much everything for us to truly appreciate us winning. So when we win, we're partying, we're celebrating. I was there on the streets. I was there, cheering on the cars, geeing everybody up, yelling at Bulldogs, joining in when Winston Neville was doing the team chant. I was there pretty much right around that circle, singing the song. It's such great stuff to see. It's so great to watch the Bulldogs, the culture and the way it's impacted, the way it's infectious, the way everyone wants to get involved, the way everyone parties. And you got to think about it. If we're doing this in round 22, but we do win the comp on October 6th, man, I will be partying for the next month after that. That whole, pretty much all of October will be a write-off for me. You won't see me. I'll be just in the streets of Belmore, up and down those roads, partying until someone takes me away, pretty much. That's what I really want to cover. I loved it. The entire Belmore experience. I was there from like 1 o'clock, and I didn't leave Belmore till like, I don't know, 8 maybe. And it was just great. Alright. How long has that been? About 15 minutes, really? Wow. You see what I mean? This is why I started the podcast, so I can just keep talking, and no one tells me to shut up. It's great. So that's round 22 covered. I'll quickly do my player of the round, team of the round, game of the round, worst team of the round, and worst game of the round. They're all pretty straightforward. Player of the round, Stephen Crichton. 2 tries, try assist. What else can I say? Great performance. Team of the round, I'm going to give it to the Titans. they were unbelievable. Their attack is flowing so well. They shifted the ball out. They're making teams, struggle. They're playing so well, and it's just great to watch underdogs like them play. Game of the round, I'm going to give it to, it's a bit of a tougher one actually. Game of the round, I'm going to give it to the Melbourne Dragons game. I think it was great footy. Yeah, Melbourne were a bit meh at times, but it was pretty good though. It was still a really good game of just defense. Now, worst team of the round, I'm going to give it it's a few contenders for that one. I'm going to give it to the Warriors. You can't have everything on the line. You're at home. You're an enemy. And you have that home advantage, especially for the Warriors in New Zealand. You have this home advantage. You can dish out that kind of performance against Parramatta of all teams. Yeah, they're the worst team of the round. It was really disappointing. Now, for worst game of the round, though, I'm going to give it to the Sharks and Rabbitohs game. So that's back-to-back weeks where the Rabbitohs have been the most disappointing game involved. And it's no surprise because there's so many players out injured. They're just not playing great footy. It's just disappointing. So that's it for round 22, all the coverage for that. Now we're going to do a round 23 coverage. We'll do team list first, and then we'll get into tips, anytime, try scorers. So for the first game of round 23, we have Rabbitohs and Melbourne at Accor Stadium, 7:50 on the Thursday. For the Bunnies, Cody Walker returns back into the side. And for Melbourne, Eli Katoa has been ruled out. That was a huge loss. I owned him in Supercoach, so that's been a rough thing to deal with this week. Other than that, pretty much the same sides. On the Friday, 6 p.m, Titans and Sharks at Cbus Super Stadium. For the Titans, Beau Fermor has been ruled out of this game. AJ Brimson, 18th man. For the Sharkies, still no returns on Nico Hines or Ronaldo Mulatalo. And now Braden Trindle has been ruled out for an extended period of time, wishing him also a speedy recovery. Same for Beau Fermor. And then on the Friday, Parramatta and Penrith, pretty much same size, 1-17, no changes. They'll be playing at CommBank 8 o'clock. On the Super Saturday, the Raiders and Manly at Geo Stadium. For the Raiders, no changes, so 1-17. For the Manly Sea Eagles, Male Olakawatu returns and Carl Lawton returns. And otherwise than that, sides are the same. For the Cowboys and Broncos at 5:30 p.m. at Queensland Country Bank Stadium in Townsville. For the Cowboys, Ruben Cotter returns back into the side of that nasty head knock a few weeks ago. For the Broncos, no real changes here, all the same. Now for the late game, Dragons and Bulldogs at Australia Jubilee Stadium, Cogra. For the Dragons, no changes to the side. Sloan's still at fullback. For the Doggies, exact same. No changes through the 1-17. Curran, however, has been under doubts to play. There are rumours that he might not be playing. We'll wait and see for the 24-hour team news, see what happens there. On the Sunday, 2 o'clock, Dolphins and Warriors up at Suncorp Stadium. For the Dolphins, no changes. For the Warriors, they have a few changes back into the side. I believe Chance Klukstad still remains at fullback. Ale Leatoa is at centre. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck also gets moved into the centre. Edward Kossi is moved down to the wing. Still no sign of Tamari Martin. Don't know what's going on there. He's at 18th man. That's a bit strange. For the Dolphins, Max Platt is still at hooker. Jermaine Osako is still playing after what I thought would have been a nasty injury. He's still playing, so that shows you how tough they are. For the Sunday game, Sunday 4:05, Newcastle and Tigers up at Newcastle. Alright, for Newcastle, obviously they, no changes to the side, I believe. Phoenix Crossland still at halfback there. For the Tigers, obviously Justin Olam has been suspended, and I think he'll be going who'll be undergoing injury, like a surgery for his injury. So Solomon Alamalo and Solomon Fatape are in the centers. Adam Dewey and Solomon Fatape in the centers. Man, some of these names are so confusing. Solomon Alimalo and Charlie Staines on the wings. Galvin Caesar in the halves. Apicaracia still at hooker. So that is your team list for round 23. No real changes. Couple of outs. That's pretty much it. So now we're going to do our round 23 tips and anytime try scorers. The first game, Souths and Storm. It's obvious. Storm 13 plus here. After that embarrassing loss to the Dragons, Bellamy was fuming. I reckon he's going to fire these boys up. I won't be surprised if Storm put 50 on Souths. Souths are going to get absolutely annihilated. This is how it should play out. So Storm 13 plus, and for an anytime try scorer, I'm going to go with Ryan Pappenhausen. Alright, for the Friday 6 o'clock, Titans and Sharks. I'm going to go Titans here. I reckon with the way Titans are playing and the way Sharks are playing so poorly this year, or this back half of the year, I reckon with no Trindle, no Hines, and with Cameron McInnes at hooker and Blake Brayley at halfback, sorry, but Titans are going to win this thing, and I reckon they'll win 13 plus. And for anytime try scorer, look, I'm going to go with Keanu Kinney, but if AJ Brinson is replacement, obviously AJ Brinson will then be my backup replacement. Alright, then the next game, 8 o'clock, Eels vs Panthers, supposedly they call it Battle of the West, at Combank Stadium. I've always disagreed that Panthers and Parramatta are a big rivalry. Yeah, they are, but man, Bulldogs and Parramatta is a much bigger rivalry. Anyway, Panthers win this 13 plus, and I reckon Sonny Taruva will score a try. I reckon he'll out in the corner, the two young, inexperienced Eagles wingers. I think Taruva will go over for a try. Alright, for the Saturday 3 o'clock, Raiders and Manly down in Canberra. Tommy Turbo is going to score a try in this one. I reckon Manly win this thing 1-12. This was the toughest game to pick, I'll be honest. But Manly 1-12, and Tommy Turbo will score a try. Alright, Cowboys and Broncos, 5:30 p.m. up in Townsville. I'm going to go Cowboys here, 13 plus. Broncos have pretty much nothing left to offer. Mathematically, they're out of the 8. They had no chance of making the 8. So I'm going to go with Jeremiah Nanai, though, to score. I reckon he'll crash over. Now, for what is shaping up to be the game of the round and potentially game of the season, 7:35 p.m. in Kogarah, Dragons and Bulldogs. Now, look, I've learned not to get too cocky. I'm going to go Bulldogs here 1-12. I reckon Dragons, they're going to want some payback after the last time we versed and we beat them 44-12. I reckon it's going to be a tough one. So obviously I'm going to go Bulldogs, but I'm going to go 1-12. And to score, I'm going to go the milestone man, William Mikikia. This Saturday is his 150th. Huge congratulations to him. He's been an outstanding signing for us. Obviously, he didn't get the ideal start last year. Had a head knock, then a torn pec, and then he came back into the side. Obviously, probably still a bit unfit. And was criticised for it, which I thought was always a bit harsh. Like, this guy was injured for the majority of this year. He's been dying to play. And already a side with low confidence, it's going to happen. He's been a revelation this year. He's putting these bulldozing tackles. He's scoring some solid tries. So I'm going to put Kiko down for a try scorer for his 150th. Then on the Sunday, 2 o'clock, Dolphins and Warriors. I'm going to go Dolphins here 1-12 and Bostock to score. And for the last game, Knights and Tigers. And what's going to definitely be not the worst game of the round, probably. I'm going to go Knights here 1-12, though. I reckon Tigers will put up a bit of a fight. I'm going to go Dan Gagai, though, to score. I reckon on that centre, with these inexperienced centres at the Tigers, I reckon Dan Gagai will go over for a try. So that is my round 23 tips in anytime try scorers. Okay, now that all been covered, let's move on to some super coach discussions and my trades. There's been a few things I've had to deal with this week. Obviously, we had Dom Young go down with a hamstring injury. Still unsure when he'll come back or not. Yes, the Roosters have the bye this week. I'm still taking I'm obviously still going to be a bit weary. So I'm going to trade him out this week. I'm going to bring in Val Holmes. I reckon with the run home, They have 3 games in Townsville and then a bye round. And apparently their toughest game in Townsville is going to be against Storm. And the rumour has it that Storm will be resting a lot of their boys for round 26, I believe it is. Because they don't want to make the trip up to Townsville, where Melbourne are probably either going to be first or second. So Val Holmes coming into the side will be a good choice. The only other issue, Eli Katoa obviously been ruled out. Who knows how long? They're probably going to be resting for round 26 anyways. They're only going to play like 3 out of like the last 5. So I'm selling him. I'm going to bring David Fafita, who's really only there until next round when Angus Crichton comes back from the bye, and then I'll probably bring Angus Crichton in because he's probably the go-to second rower to have in your super coach side. Otherwise than that, Rich Robson will stay at hooker. AFB and Curran will be my front rowers. Yes, I'm still a bit weary about Curran. That's why I've got Mariota and Royce Hunter replace him if need be. Second row is David Fafita, TPJ, and Ruben Porter. Ruben Porter scored really well for me over the weekend with 98. My halfbacks, Nathan Cleary and Jerome Hughes. 5'8", Matty Burton and Luke Keary. Obviously, Luke Keary isn't going to be playing this week. He's on the bye. For my wingers and centers, Brian To'o, Kiraz, Val Holmes, and Iro. And I've got actually all 3 of my on the bench are all going to be reserved. Hammer, Crichton, and Jay Tunga will all be reserved. For my fullbacks, Tom Travojevic and James Tedesco, obviously Teddy is going to be playing because of the bye. So Travojevic will be the main fullback. And for my VC, I'm actually going to give it to Val Holmes. And I'll put Cleary at captain. It's too much of a risk. I don't want to do the loop, risk the loop. I'd rather just put Cleary at halfback, who he might have a field day, honestly, against his Parramatta side. He might have a field day. And then Val Holmes, obviously, with goal kicking against a defeated Brisbane side. I reckon they'll both score really well for me this weekend. That's pretty much it for Supercoach and my trades for this week. Alright. Unfortunately, now we're going to get into some rather unpleasant news I have to discuss. I know I've spent like 10 minutes raving on about Belmore, how good the game day was. But unfortunately, there was a few people just took the celebration just a little bit too far. I'm sure by now you all know what I'm referring to. Unfortunately, after the game, during all the partying at Belmore, a fair few of you won't see them, I'm putting in quotations, fans followed a diehard Raiders fan. They followed into his car and they started harassing him, trying to get him to join the celebrations. He clearly didn't want any part of it, yet they still tried to drag him into it. And, there have been reports that it got physical and claims have been made, and it's not on. I know I'm trying to remain positive and happy this whole podcast, but I knew I was going to have to talk about this incident. And look, the Raiders drummer, I believe his name is Simon. He is one of the most loyal, dedicated fans of rugby league we've seen in years. In every game, he's always there, wearing the Viking helmet, banging the drum. He's always there for his Raiders. Always. And as someone who's only recently started being so openly public about his love for his team, seeing someone doing this for years, I got to commend him for that. It's great. So then when I see these fake fans, these people who I bet you last year weren't there when Newcastle put 66 points on us, go up to him. He's clearly trying to go to his car. This guy's he's like 60 years old, I believe. He wants to just go to his car, just go home to his family. His team is lost. But they want to bring him into it. It was just borderline bullying and harassment at that point. Leave the man alone. Let him go home. It's so just frustrating because there's already a somewhat negative image of the Bulldogs fans. How we're loud, we're this, we're that. Especially the Arab ones, like me, I'm an Arab as well. We're categorized as loud, abrasive. And it just reinforces that negative stereotype of us. And I hate that. Because that's not who we are. That is not who the Bulldogs are. The Bulldogs fans, I know, we're passionate people, but we're respectful. We understand and we respect all passionate fan bases. If we beat Parramatta, I'm going to give Parramatta fans some shit. But I'm not going to sit there and harass them or assault them. I'm just going to have a bit of banter with them, laugh at them, and that's it. Because at the end of the day, we're all people. We're all fans of footy. It shouldn't be that big of a deal that you have to sit there and harass them, assault them. Just let let him go home to his family. Like, that's all I want to say about it. I don't want to over go into it. It's not on. It's not right. Leave him alone. All right. I think by now, I think the Bulldogs club has actually dealt with this issue. They've contacted Simon, and the people who were involved have been reprimanded, all that stuff. But the thing I want to point out was this great video that Emilio De Savage and a whole bunch of content creators all made. It was like, I believe it's like a 2-minute video where, you know, they're just wishing Simon all the best. They're all, like, there's like 10 of them. They're all reaching out to him. They're all, pretty much, they're standing by Simon. They're trying to show the community that we're all by his side. That we don't condone those kind of actions. We all stand by, and I'll say from now, from the Wild Doggies fan, I'm right by your side, Simon. I think that was absolutely disgusting. I don't know if you ever see this video or even if knows who I am, but, you know, wishing him all the best. I hope he's okay. I hope his family's okay. I hope his image of the Bulls isn't too impacted. He sees that despite those few bad eggs, there are so many good Doggies fans. There's so many good fans out there who are passionate people. And that's all I want to say on that. You know, wishing you, Simon, all the very best. I hope you're okay. And let's move on from that. Because to me, those are my Doggies fans. Those are just bandwagoners who are just there for the partying. Now to move on to another form of sad news. Shaun Johnson, one of the most respected players in rugby league, has announced his retirement. And, you know, it makes sense. It truly does. Unfortunately, this year hasn't been a great year for him. He's been copping a lot of flack from supposedly his fans, from Warriors fans, all telling him to retire. I remember reading all the comments. They want him to retire. They're all saying he's not playing well. Get rid of him. Well, they got what they wanted. And it's just disappointing. But, look, he's played, I believe, 261 games of footy. He's had a stellar career for New Zealand, for the Warriors. He's arguably one of the best players in the modern era. He's one of the best to watch. I've seen old videos of him doing his goose steps. He used to break ankles for like daily at a game. You know. So congratulations, Shaun Johnson. Wishing you all the very best for retirement. Unfortunately, I was doing a bit of research. Well, not a bit of research, a bit of looking at his draw home. His last ever home game at the Warriors' last home game for the year, and his last game at home ever is against the Bulldogs. Of course, our luck, we're going to be versing Shaun Johnson in New Zealand on his last ever game at home as a Warrior. That is, you could not have made it any worse. But shit happens, and I reckon it's going to be a really, really good game. And of course, then he's also versing the Sharks for round 27. That's going to be his last game pretty much as a Warrior, because I don't think Warriors will make the 8. That's his last game. And obviously he's only ever played for 2 clubs, the Sharks and the Warriors. So that's going to be an interesting final game. And yeah, and it's such a shame that Shaun Johnson had such a stellar career. But unfortunately, he doesn't have that many accolades to stand by it. He obviously got robbed of a Dally M last year. I don't think Kalaponga deserved it. That Dally M was Shaun Johnson's all day, any day. And unfortunately, he could just never win a comp. And unfortunately, when you look back at all the great players, or when people talk about GOATs, like the GOAT players, normally that player has won at least one comp. Unfortunately, Shaun Johnson just will be one of those players that just never got the chance to hold up a premiership trophy. And it's a shame, but unfortunately, at his age, with all the injuries he's had this year, and everything else, it's just his age. He wants to be with his family. It's fitting that he's retiring, you know? So, congratulations, SJ. I'm wishing you all the very best. And we'll see you around 25. Now, for the next thing I want to cover. There's been this question going around lately. The signing of the year. Now, obviously, it's a very obvious question. And everyone's... Unanimously, there's been one answer. But I want to dive a bit deeper into, why. Stephen Crichton has been undoubtedly the signing of the year. If not, one of the best... I know this is a wild take, and I'll probably cop some flack for this, but I believe Stephen Crichton has been the best signing since Cooper Cronk signed to the Roosters. I know, wild statement, but hear me out on this one, okay? Stephen Crichton, before he came to the Bulldogs, the Bulldogs were 15th, worst defense. We were getting pumped by 30 points every week. He comes to the side in the preseason. Everyone's saying, "Oh, Stephen Crichton's given up now playing finals. He won't play finals anymore." Then he gets named captain. Everyone goes, "That's a bit weird. Why are we naming a guy that we just signed as captain?" Bit of a rough start, like the first couple of games. You're questioning what's going on. And then slowly, you see our defense gets better and better. Stephen Crichton's more involved. He's vocal on the field. He's communicating with his players. He's leading this pack. You then see how he is behind the scenes at training camp. And just slowly and slowly, he was just showing everyone why he's such an why he is the signing of the year. And why he, in my opinion, will get Dally M Captain of the Year. He'll get Dally M Center of the Year, Dally M Captain of the Year. And it's so obvious because you look at the way the mentality he has on this club has been insane. You give him the ball, he'll find something to do to make it work. Whether it's a flick pass, a chip and chase, a perfectly weighted kick, or he just runs at himself and just barges through everyone. Crichton just finds a way to make it work. He scored 8 tries this year. He has been a mental inspiration for this team. I think back to that Parramatta game we had in round 14, where we're down by 2. We're going to get the ball. And Crichton's there. He's talking with Wilson. He's talking with Tracy. He's showing them what to do. He's clearly playing something. A few minutes later, Wilson then scores the game-winning try. Even in that same game, he goes in for 2 tries. He has a great flick pass to Wilson to score his first try. And when Kurt Mann got sent to the sin bin, instead of doing what Gutho and Moses were doing, they're putting their hands in the air whenever something goes wrong. Crichton just looks at his team. He's clapping his hand. He's raised hands in the air. He's hyping up the crowd. He's hyping up the players. He's showing them, okay, that's fine. We losing a player, that's okay. Let's keep our heads down. We'll keep going. We didn't concede a single point in that next 10 minutes. Kurt Mann comes back. I think we did score a try instead. Then Kurt Mann comes back and we go on to win the game in what was probably the best game of the year in my opinion. So Crichton has just been... He's had such a huge impact on this team. I freaking love Crichton. I can't wait to see how far he goes at this club. Like the fact that it's his first year at the club, it's his first ever captaincy role. He hasn't been a captain ever. He wasn't a captain at Panthers. It's his first role as a captain and he's killing it. And then you think about it. I saw this post made by the Rugby League Guru where he said Stephen Crichton, besides Cleary, him and Crichton and Cleary are both the only 2 possibilities lately that have the chance of ever being a rugby league immortal. And honestly, I got to agree. I have to agree with that. Crichton, it's his first year at this club, and look at his impact. If he stays for like 5-10 years, if he honestly stays the rest of his career at the Dogs, he could probably win us a couple of premierships. And if he's seriously the guy who turns this club around from being a bottom 3 side, worst defense, to one of the best defensive teams we've seen in winning premierships, why shouldn't he be immortal? Like, instead of asking why should he be an immortal, why not should he be an immortal, should be the question we're asking. So yeah, I really just wanted to cover that. How Crichton has been a revelation. He's been the signing of the year, signing of the best signing in like, I don't know, 5-6 years. That's enough talking about Crichton. Let's move on to a different topic about... There's been the recent talks this week about that the Dragons and Bulldogs game should be moved from Kogarah to Allianz Stadium. Now, look, from like a business perspective, I completely understand that idea. I understand, you move these guys to a bigger stadium, you're going to get a bigger crowd, you're going to generate more money. That I understand. But you got to get the suburban grounds. And yes, obviously I know suburban grounds like Belmore, Leichhardt, they don't really make... They host the games, but they don't even make the money back. And look, it's unfortunate, But unfortunately, you got to give love to these grounds. You just have to. You can't, because these grounds were the foundation for footy. For rugby league in Australia, these suburban grounds were the platform. They were the foundation. Without them, they wouldn't have led up to these big stadiums that we have now. You know, they're sacred grounds. It's where some of the greatest players began their journeys as great players. So in my opinion, we shouldn't move stadiums. We should honestly let the suburban grounds have a couple of games. Let them enjoy that. Let the fans some fans might not be able to can't make the trip to these big stadiums like Accor, Allianz, Combank. Maybe they can't make the trip. So I think letting these smaller grounds, more local fans, let them have a turn. Let them enjoy a game. Like, why rob them of that for the sake of money? That's all I really want to say on that. I think by now, they've decided, no, they're not going to do that. Now, on NRL 360, there was this big talk about how the game of the round, and potentially one of the best games of the season, is arriving very soon. Saturday night, 7:35, St. George Illawarra Dragons are hosting the Canberra Bankstown Bulldogs. Both teams are coming off great wins. They're both in the 8. They're both racing for a spot in the finals. It's going to be such a good game. I can't wait. I was so lucky. I managed to snag some tickets right before they were sold out. So I was very lucky for that. And yeah, I think it's going to be a brilliant game. So, and NRL 360 are talking about that and how last year these two sides were bottom 3. Tigers were 17th and the Dragons were 16th. We were 15th. We were all... Like, in total, we've won I think in total there was 13 games we won among the two clubs. Now they're both racing for top 8. They're all playing good footy. Obviously, I think Bulldogs are going to win because Dragons, when they're off, they are really bad. Like, when Dragons don't play well, they don't just play slightly bad. They play absolutely dog shit, which is really funny. Like, it's funny because, like, it's so bizarre that they'll them have, like, these great games, like, against the Warriors, Melbourne, but then they'll, like, get absolutely pumped. Like, it's by Penrith by like 40. It's bizarre, but that's rugby league for you. And then Buzz Rothfield and Braithen Astor were then having a bit of a discussion about what's been the better story this year. The Bulldogs turnaround or the Dragons turnaround. Now Buzz's argument is that Dragons were like $3.50 to win the spoon. They were clearly undervalued. They were seen as pretty much a shit team. And they've turned around and now they're racing for top 8. And Braid's argument was, you look at the Bulldogs, worst defensive side in the comp. They signed where everyone was claiming just a bunch of shitty utilities who are now racing for a top 4 spot, second best defensive side in the comp. Every player is an integral role in this team. And they never really resolved it. You know, Buzz kept his stance on the Dragons and Braith kept his stance on the Bulldogs. Now look, obviously I'm going to say the Bulldogs had the better storyline, but like you got to look at it the way it's not like the Dragons where we're playing like, yeah, we're playing solid footy and we're maybe going to race for the finals. No, we're racing for top 4. Like we're racing to potentially play in a game that could take us to a preliminary grand final and then potentially a grand final. Dragons, they're struggling, like they're on negative, I think like 90. Bulldogs are on positive 92. The only way Dogs could ever go into the negatives now is if they lose like every game for the rest of the season by big margins, which they just won't because the defense is just so strong. Well, Dragons, they might be able to jag a couple of wins, but it's their points differential is what's going to cost them. That's why I think the Bulldogs have been the better story this year. They've had the better turnarounds, better results, better fan bases, and they're turned up for the bigger moments. You know, I think back to that Panthers game. The Anzac game. Dragons were actually like tied with Roosters to win that game. Like they were both relatively even out on who's going to win. I think Dragons were the favourites. Roosters then go on to put 60 on them, and then Dragons get eviscerated. Like Bulldogs haven't done that. We haven't, had a big moment and not live up to it. The Parramatta game on King's birthday, 45,000 people rocked up to this game. Biggest turn up since like 2014, I think, for a Western Sydney game. And they delivered. It was, again, my opinion, the game of the year. So yeah, that's why I think Dogs have been the better storyline this year. In saying that, for Dogs and Dragons, you look at both of them have like relatively new coaches. Shane Flanagan obviously came into the side this year, and Serrato is his second year. Now, on NRL 360, there was this debate for Coach of the Year. Now, I believe it should go to Serrato as well. And look, I know, it sounds obvious I'm saying that because I'm a Doggies fan. I'm going to say that. But, like, again, look at what he's done. Last year, everyone thought he wasn't the man for the job. Sack him. He's shit. He clearly doesn't know what he's doing. But it wasn't his fault. It was the players' fault. The players weren't buying into the system. They weren't buying into the plan. And it showed on the field. Now look what happens this year. He gets the roster that he wants. He gets all the players he needs or he wants on the side who are there, who are willing to work. They're willing to do the hard yards to win. And it's paying off. We're winning games. We're racing for top 4. So yeah, I also think Serrato should be Coach of the Year. But Shane Flanagan he's a notch for. I reckon if Dragons do get the win this weekend or Dragons do well into the A, I reckon maybe Shane Flanagan. But I still think Serrato, Coach of the Year, and Dogs win this game. But those are just two things I want to talk about. There's been this huge debate between Dogs and Dragons lately. And again, that's why it's shaping up to be this is going to be the game of the round on Saturday. Both sides have great fan bases who haven't been performing well lately. And now, this year, they're both playing good footy. Well, one side is playing good footy. That's all I'm going to say. And here we are now. And it's so funny to think that a derby game for Bulldogs and Dragons is getting more traction and more attention and more hype around it than a Queensland derby. Literally 2 hours before that game, Cowboys and Broncos are playing. That's a grand final rematch. But that was still the greatest grand final ever in 2015. Their rematch is happening and barely anyone's talking about it. All everyone's talking about is this Dogs and Dragons game. That just shows you how far improved both teams are. And yeah, I believe that's about it for that topic. Actually, another thing I want to talk about for Bulldogs news. I'm that section now for Bulldogs news and discussions and stuff. I'll quickly cover recent injuries. Obviously, Salmon and King are still not back yet. Curran is in potential doubts to play on Saturday. However, I'm hoping he'll be playing for the team's sake and my super coach's sake. He's playing, and also because he's a great player. One of the most underrated players this year. In terms of signing news, obviously last Friday, Stefano Oitekamanu signed with Melbourne. After the whole week, we were being told Dogs are the favourites. We're the favourites. It's pretty much a done deal. He then goes to Melbourne. And look, I get it. Would you rather go to a side that's, yeah, we're doing well, but we're still technically building, or a team that's clearly got a system that's working and has turned out some great superstars over the last 20 years? You're going to go to Melbourne. And you also got to think for the sake of the salary cap. We're in the talks right now of re-signing Bronson Jerry, Skelton. We've just re-signed Wilson, Harry Hayes, Kiraz. We've spent a whole lot of money even getting these signings. We probably couldn't fit him. Or who knows? Or maybe Stefano did want to just go to Melbourne. Who knows? Because again, he wants to improve his game. He wants to win comps. I don't blame him for going to Melbourne. I understand that. Obviously, wishing him all the best in Melbourne. And did we miss out? Yeah. But look at our side now. Small forward pack, and we're still the second best defensive team. So I take that with pride. There's not really much else Bulldogs-wise. I already spun my yarns about that. Obviously, Belmont was such a great experience. The fans, the club, the players, the game. It was just all brilliant stuff. Yeah, I think that's it. I did a bit of a deep. Yeah, I did a relatively solid deep dive into the Bulls and Raiders match. I mainly talked about things before and after the game, not really much about the game. But Adakar had his 2 great tries, Cryan 2 great tries, and that epic try assist he had for the Fox. But again, the whole game was just great between the Bulls and the Raiders. You know, both of them were playing defensive footy. Fogarty was kicking well. We kept catching it. Also, for the Raiders, Ethan Strange comes back into their side instead of Adam Cook. I don't know. I feel like just mentioning that as well because, you know, teamless stuff. But I just literally just went over my head because I just didn't think to consider that because I was so focused on this Boils and Dragons game. So yeah, I think that's about everything. Alrighty, guys. Thank you for listening to episode 4 of the Wild Doggies Fan podcast. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe, comment down, and stay tuned for all future videos. Also, please go to my Instagram at the Wild Doggies Fan and follow that. I post quite frequently on my stories and my posts. I'm currently at, I believe, just under 40 followers. So all the support I can get over there would be great. Again, thank you all for listening. This was a really long episode, but this is the kind of thing I want to do. Get these longer episodes out, to have this kind of discussion, a lot louder, a lot more confident. I'm talking about stuff I'm passionate about. That's just how I am. I'm always going to be passionate about talking about my rugby league, because I just love the sport so much. So yeah, thank you everybody for listening. I will see you all very soon for episode 5. For episode 5, I'm going to have a very special video for that. Hopefully that'll all work out well. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next episode.